My name is Callen Latz. I'm from Owasso, Michigan, and that's where I currently live.
Awesome. Why don't you tell me a little about yourself?
Well, I was a young, ambitious man. Before the age of 23, ended up owning a house, and because of the medical situation, eventually did lose it. I'm living with my parents now, so that's unfortunate. I went through my youth kind of under the DARE mind frame that I wouldn't, alter my mind with any substance, alcohol. I wouldn't even take too much caffeine. I was in the Boy Scouts. I went through the Explorer program with them. I intended completely to become a police officer. I was awarded a scholarship from the Shiawassee County so that I could do that. When I was registering for the police academy, they said that I wouldn't be able to do that because of a visual handicap I was born with. I'm actually blind in one eye, so if I close this eye, I'll use my weak eye, but if I blink, my left eye is dominant. But each eye has vision, but only one at a time. It's a unique eye situation. I don't know if it has an official name yet. I was treated at the CPN Institute when I was very young. They patched this eye, so that it forced the muscle to pull the lazy eye over. If you don't have vision in two eyes, it's not essential to have them facing the same direction, and that's what causes lazy eyes in children. It'll pull off to the side to get more of the peripheral vision. For me, that worked out pretty well. I didn't have a lazy eye, and I went through elementary school pretty normally. It did cause a migraine headache, and that was an optic migraine headache, so it was right along the optic nerve behind that eye. That started happening in grade school, but it was quite manageable. I actually found a lot of success in caffeine for managing the migraines or working out. The migraine headache, as far as I understand, is the constriction of the blood vessels inside of the brain, and it causes the tissue to be irritated. So I would try to work that vein with caffeine or really running. Like, I would run a lot just to get through a migraine, and it would be interesting to be running and not be able to keep my breath up enough to keep the pain away, and like have to stop sometimes or keep going to feel relief. And those are about the only two things that I found relieving for my situation. I got through some college courses. I was very fortunate enough to become a editorial assistant at a stock photo agency right out of high school. I would have retired from that job if it still existed. I don't think that industry really can compete with Microsoft's Corvus at this point, though, so we had to retire that down. I was able to pick up employment at Blockbuster, where I eventually worked up to a store manager. I also was a personal banker at Fifth Third, and a jewelry salesperson for Sterling Jewelers, which is the brand that's behind J.B. Robinson. They've got K's, all of the big logos. There's about 12 of them. And between working these three jobs, I was actually able to get my house, and while dealing with this migraine that was chronic about once a week, it really started to go downhill for me when the symptoms of chronic vomiting onset. I would brush it off because it would happen infrequently, and the trend is that it happens more frequently in my life. So it would be about 6 months, and I'd have a strange episode where I thought, well, food poisoning, something strange, It started to get more and more frequent, though, and it was a problem for my employers, and I wasn't able to find a diagnosis. It was so infrequent, and it wasn't to the point where I needed MRIs, or it wasn't specialized yet. So I unfortunately lost my employments because of the attendance and not having a qualifying condition to go on to COBRA, and that was very unfortunate, very disappointing for me too. It was almost a balancing act for a while to take Zonegran to this level so that the migraines would not be unbearable, and it was kind of a trade-off for the nausea and vertigo to take migraines more versus the vomiting. And that was interesting for a while because I would take any medication at this point if it relieved me from going days of just puking. And I'll say that I've gotten down to 108 pounds twice this year from the episodes. I mean, I bounce back pretty quickly, but it's really scary to see yourself that thin and still be hunched over a toilet and just going for it. It's not a walk in the park. I was exceptionally displeased because I came from that background of, you know, drugs are bad and I'm not gonna change my mind, to having someone professionally recommend that I take cannabis. And it was definitely not on my parents' approval list, and at this point I was being supported by them, and still am. I've been denied for disability twice now, so I'm still working on that. Most of the time, my life is pretty normal. I don't have episodes or a headache. It's just when that goes down, I really relate to people with seizures. I don't have seizures myself unless I've puked so much that I'm that dehydrated and I'm going into shock. Going into cannabis therapy was definitely interesting for me because it was something that I knew a lot of people that did it recreationally. I didn't exactly think there was much value to it medicinally beyond probably psychological relief, which I can say, going through the situation that it was nice to have something that made me feel happy. Like I couldn't say that I was depressed, so they weren't giving me depression drugs, and I still don't think I am. It's just kind of dealing with a depressing situation, and it's very nice to have a medical option that not only removes this feeling of vertigo for me, which is something I kind of deal with every day. It's essential to me in a daily life. I don't think I have an appetite without it because of the fear of what if I puke? What if I go into an episode? If I have less food in my belly, it seems like the episode will be a lower duration. So that has been a concern for me at times, and I've been diagnosed anorexic because of it, and it's a little bit insulting or inaccurate as I feel, but I mean, I'm afraid to eat food, so how do I say no to that, I guess? When I started the cannabis therapy, I was still going through a slew of other prescription medications, and some of them were scary. I was on Topamax for about 2 months, and they had tried me on about 5 anti-seizure medications, Neurotonin, Zongran, Topamax. I'm not sure I'll be able to remember the other 2. But Topamax was really scary for me, and it caused the neuropathy in my hands and feet, and it felt like I couldn't sit still. I couldn't sleep because of it. It was the worst medical endeavor I tried to go through. It was really painful to have the nerve feeling, the tingles on your hands and feet just move constantly all through the day. And it didn't stop the episodes, so I definitely jumped off of that one. The only medication that has been effective for me is cannabis. I've found relief through the physical symptoms, the emotional symptoms that come with having a chronic diagnosis, and everyday life. I think it keeps me normalized and centered, which in a very literal physical sense is important to me. I don't feel the vertigo while I'm under the influence, and I medicate probably 3 or 4 times a day, and I don't smoke joints, so it's not even that much to consume. I do have that oil with me, which is a vaporizer pen, so that I can consume that very quickly if I start to go into an episode. And I know when I'm episodic because I feel the symptoms of vertigo is kind of how I understand it. Like, I'm not in myself. The world is swaying to try and center myself to that feeling. It's something where I wear an eye patch if I go into an episode. I'll start to sweat and get very cold, and then I'll I'll feel it in my stomach, just this immense pain that.
Are you feeling okay right now?
Oh yeah, I feel okay right now. It's just hot in here with the lights,
Okay.
and it's like 90 degrees
It's
outside.
yeah.
Yeah. I am very heat sensitive though, and it's probably a lot to do with this. I do prefer it in the winter. I love Michigan for the winter season. But the episode will come on for me in about a half hour, and I'll need to be in front of a toilet or something. I just went on vacation to Atlantic City to see it rebuilt in New Jersey, and I had an episode on the boardwalk, and it's physically bad, but it's very embarrassing to not even be able to move yourself to the hospital that's down the boardwalk because of the physical ailment. And I had to have one of the rickshaw people run me down to the hospital. It was not ideal. I had seen a national broadcast in Colorado with someone who has the exact diagnosis as me, chronic vomiting syndrome. And I've had to educate my doctors on that symptom, or the diagnosis, when I would go to see them. They hadn't heard it before. In every emergency room that I've been to, a couple across the nation because I've had episodes on vacation, it's usually unknown. They sometimes will have an ambitious doctor that'll look it up on his phone real quick, but most of the time it's dismissed, and I'm a card patient, and I'll have to say going into the ER, yes, I've consumed cannabis, and it's very dismissive in most cases. In my hometown, I've been to the ER at least 30 times in 2 years, so yeah, going through the different prescriptions really brought that up. I've not had an episode since about May, and I had stopped taking all of the other prescriptions in May. So it's working out very well for me.
So cannabis is your only medicine then?
The only thing that I am consuming is cannabis, and the occasional like tea for caffeine. But that's all that I consume, and it is exceptionally relieving to have one thing that balances all of my symptoms and brings me to a happier place. It does have that effect, and I really wish that that weren't discredited, especially for the veterans with PTSD. That's very important for them.
Well, thank you. Appreciate it.
Thank you.